Sage Wanderer here, coming at you from my cabin down by the creek. Okay, so this is my victory dance. Insert your favorite music. You think I'm crazy, right? So, did you watch the debate last night? Don't. Have you seen the clips? Well, 1 week before the debate, some 8 days ago, I predicted that our president would be outed as a person who is in cognitive decline and incapable of running our country, or especially running for another 4-year term. I told you in that video that the people putting him up there were fully aware of it. I talked about in that video, which the link is in the description, and I also sent out a community post today, rebroadcasting that video, so you might want to watch it again. It was called "Who is Really Running Our Country?" and it was a coffee talk, and the subtitle was "Will Biden Be Replaced?" Right? In that video, I predicted exactly what would happen, what did happen last night at the presidential debate. And in it, I asked a few questions in that video, which I'll ask again. Why would they want Biden to debate Donald Trump? Why would they put their candidate that they know is in decline, that can't finish a sentence, that has sentences that sound like, man? Why would you put that Mumbly Joe Mumbles, why would you put him up against the articulate, hard-hitting Donald Trump in a one-on-one debate, even when you rigged it in his favor? Why would you do that? It's not politically smart. Especially, why would you do that so early? They're not even the official declared nominees yet. Don't. Maybe they were going to do that because Biden's not officially the declared candidate yet. He's the presumptive candidate, the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party. Why would they do that? Well, because they wanted Joe Biden's illness to go on display. They wanted to show the world what is really happening. You know, they've been lying and covering in the media and in the Biden administration. They've been making excuses for him, covering for him, lying, calling all of us conspiracy theorists when we say, look, the emperor has no clothes. Look, Joe Biden's mind is gone. He just said blah, 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 on camera. How do you defend that? And it's driven me personally crazy. They called the video clips of Biden's missteps, misstatements, and his display up till now of his mental decline. They called those cheap fakes, claimed they were deceptively edited. Well, I watched last night, nobody was editing nothing. Last night was a train wreck. Last night was mental decline on display. Last night was elder abuse. Last night was hardcore evidence that this man has no business running for another 4-year term. And he has no business running our country. Who's really in charge of our country? Because it ain't that guy. It's not him. Blow my voice out yelling. So I predicted that they were doing this intentionally. They're intentionally doing this to implode Biden. Why? Why would they throw Biden on the sacrificial altar? Why would they throw him under the bus like this? It's obviously intentional. Why would, what do they benefit from this? It makes the entire democratic system and the press look like idiots. They've been defending this guy. And now they've got to turn around and go, okay, maybe I guess you're right. Why would they do that? There's only one explanation. Because they've been wanting Joe Biden to step aside for some time. A prophet on YouTube, a religious prophet, said that God told him some weeks ago that Joe Biden didn't want to step down. He wanted to stay president. They had people telling him, look, you can't cut it anymore. People are going to find out. Joe, you know you got dementia. And he won't step down. He won't step away. He still wants to cling to power. This is what a prophet said was going on behind the scenes. which makes perfect sense. Why they would put him up in front of the world so we could all see what we're dealing with. Why would they take that huge risk? Why would they promote it? Why would they instigate that risk by challenging Donald Trump to a debate so early if it weren't for getting Joe Biden to finally admit that he has dementia and that he can't be president again? Right? They got to get him to step down. It just makes it easier if he steps down. They've been asking him to step down behind the scenes, I'm sure of it. That's the only explanation for what we saw last night. Like they knew he was going to do that. Like they knew that he was going to have whole paragraphs that you, at the end of it, you went, what did Mumbles just say? That he's lost the ability to communicate. He's lost the ability to make an argument. He's lost a lot of abilities. Someday, history will reveal that to us, and we will know what's really been going on at the White House with this man. That he clearly had dementia before he got elected to president for the first term. And it's just incrementally got worse until what we saw last night. Will there be a September debate? Absolutely not. Right? Because if he's this bad now, he's going to be worse in September. You know, whether it's Alzheimer's or dementia, you know, these are progressive diseases. They continue to progress until eventually they lead to the death of the patient. So he isn't going to get better. You know, his performance last night wasn't because he had a cold. It was because he's got a problem. And the inside people have known this. I'm convinced of it now. Here's another piece of evidence that last night was a setup to take down Joe Biden, to get him to step aside, to get him to make room for someone else, right? To make him come to terms with his own issues. So one of Joe Biden's favorite lies to tell on Donald Trump is he claims Donald Trump said there were good people on both sides of the Charlottesville riot, the race riot that happened there. And that's been debunked. Last night, Donald Trump told him, this has been debunked over and over again. And Biden gets angry and says, you're a liar. It's not either been debunked, but it has been debunked. I knew the day that he said it, that he had been set up, that Donald Trump was set up with this false accusation. Because, you know, if you know the history, a lot of people voting were in grade school when this happened. It happened a long time ago, at the beginning of Donald Trump's presidency, that there was a protest against taking down Confederate statues in a park in Charlottesville, Virginia. And that there were good people who wanted to save the history, you know, save this piece of art that had been there, to properly record the battle between the states, the war between the states of the 1860s. It's a part of Virginia history, and they were trying to defend that history, and the other side were offended by the history, and they wanted to see these Confederate statues torn down. And then racists and anti-racists, so, you know, communists, Antifa, professional rioters, and KKK members, evil people, showed up, and there was a throwdown and a big fight at Charlottesville. A lot of people got hurt. It was bloody and ugly. And when Donald Trump was asked about this, he made a statement about the Confederate statues. Not about the riot, not about the people that were fighting in the streets, not about the Tiki Torch boys, right? He was talking about the people politically who want to take the statues down and those that want to preserve them. And he said, you know, he said, now I'm not talking about, he prefaced his statement by saying this, and this is what they always leave out. He said, I'm not talking about the white supremacists and the Nazis that were there. Those were bad people. We're not talking about those. But on this argument, there are good people on both sides. And Biden's lie is that he goes around telling the world that Donald Trump said there are good people on both sides of that riot. When Donald Trump said, I'm not talking about the Nazis, but there's good people on both sides of the argument as to whether to preserve or take down the statues. Right? He wasn't saying just because you want to, he was saying just because you want to preserve The history doesn't mean you're a racist or a bad person. You might just want to preserve the history. And he was trying to make that point. When they glommed onto it, they left off the beginning part where he says, now I ain't talking about those Nazis and skinheads. I'm just talking. So that was debunked at the time. The left pushed that narrative for a long time, but eventually they even abandoned it. And the only person still repeating this lie is Ben Biden, who claims he ran because Donald Trump said that. That's the reason he came out of retirement to run to be president, was because Donald Trump said that. But Snopes is the left-leaning, known, recognized authority and debunker and fact-checking organization for social media and news. And Snopes came out just, I don't know, a week or two ago and finally said that that's been debunked, that Donald Trump did not say they were good people, that Nazis were good people, that skinheads were good people. He did not say that. And then they give the actual quote where he clearly says, now I'm not talking about the Nazis and the skinheads, but there are good people on both sides of the argument as to whether to take the statues down or leave them up. Snopes set Biden up because they knew Biden was going to use that same old tired lie, and they laid the trap. His own people. Snopes is his own people. They laid a trap for him, and nobody in his organization, they knew Snopes debunked it. It'd been debunked hundreds of times. Donald Trump pointed that out in the debate, and Biden went, "No, you're a liar." So they took an elderly man. These evil Democrats took an elderly man suffering from dementia, forced him into service in the first place to become president, lied for him, obscured his true disabilities from the people, made every excuse for him, both the people in the press and the people in his administration and Congress people and senators, defended him for the last 3-4 years. And they knew he wasn't right. And then when he wouldn't step down and let somebody else run this last round, they continued to try to pull it off. And when they knew they couldn't anymore, they set him up. They put him up against a pit bull. They put a sick chihuahua in a ring with a pit bull. And then they all went, "We didn't know. Joe Biden really is in decline. Wow, maybe we will have to get another candidate. Who would have known? We had no idea." It's all such malarkey. This prophet told us the truth, right? Biden didn't want to step down. Biden wanted to continue to be president. He didn't. People who have mental decline are the last ones to admit it. They hate admitting it. They'll hang on to it to the bitter end. They hate to admit that something's gone wrong with their mind. They just can't see it. See, Biden can't see it, right? There is a look that both Alzheimer patients and dementia patients get on their face. And I've worked with these people, right? I ran a care home. Took care of them. And there's a moment, it happens often, when they do realize that, oh, I'm wrong. There's something wrong with me. It's a moment of confusion where like reality doesn't make sense for a minute. And it's when they realize that they are wrong, they realize that they did drive to the wrong house and they haven't lived here in 10 years. They'll go, Biden would make this same face multiple times. For instance, when Donald Trump, when Joe Biden said, the Border Patrol has endorsed me, right? This is what Biden said. And then as soon as he's done talking, Donald Trump says, well, actually, the Border Patrol endorsed me. You don't know what you're talking about, Joe. Then Joe does that moment where he's like, wait a minute. Was that last election or this election? Did they ever endorse me? Is that moment where they question themselves. I've seen it 100 times on dementia patients' faces. And he wore that look throughout this deal. Why would they do that to him? Why would they put him up there? Because he won't admit it, right? He doesn't want to accept it. And this was all meant to get him to step down from running for another term. But I think it was so bad that the demand now has to be Joe Biden resign from the presidency. I think people close to Kamala Harris needed to tell her the truth. Kamala, you'll never win an election. You're not likable. You have an irritating laugh. You got a sketchy history. You know, your own people don't like you. You polled in single digits when you ran for president last time. You got picked as a diversity hire. And this is your only shot at being the president of the United States. And you could be right now. Kamala Harris, you could be president within 48 hours if you just listen to this plea. Listen to this plea, Kamala. You could be the first woman president in the history of our fine country. Now, you only get to be there for a few months because, you know, you're not going to beat Donald Trump. And, you know, we'll talk about here in a minute who might, but it won't be you, Kamala. But you will get to be president, you know, 5, 6 months maybe, 5 months, 4 months, you know, the least. But you will get to technically be the first female president because Joe Biden should resign. And if you won't resign, Kamala, you need to get with 50%, 51% of the cabinet, and you can invoke the 25th Amendment, force Biden to step down, and Kamala Harris, you can put your hand on that book you may or may not even believe in, swear an oath to a constitution that you don't understand and may not even have ever read. And if you did read it, you didn't agree with it. But you can take that oath and you can set your place in the history books as the first female president, even though you only got to be there for a few months. But that's your only shot. You'll never win. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that cackle and laugh, your shady history, you're not much much better of a public speaker than the dementia-ridden Biden is right now. This is your best shot. Take it while you can. And that's all it takes. Kamala Harris needs to sit down with the cabinet and get half of the cabinet plus one to agree with her, and the 25th Amendment will be invoked. Joe Biden will be relieved of command. We'll have a woman president for a little while. But now, who are they going to run? Because, you know, they should run Kamala. If they're doing what's right, if they're doing what's historical, she's the vice president, next in line, it's her turn, theoretically, you know. They should run Kamala if they're doing what's right. But they're trying to win. They don't care what's right. So is it going to be Gavin Newsom? Are they going to put him in this position to run for the next 4 years to be the president of this election cycle? Will they just continue to prop Joe Biden up for the next 4 months to run our country at a time when it's terrifying right now where we stand with Russia and you know, the moves that Putin's making and the conflict brewing between NATO and Russia? I mean, are we really going to risk our country by letting Joe Biden be this figurehead for another 4 or 5 months? He should resign. After that performance, his disability's on display. He's unfit for office. It was clear as the nose on your face. Anybody that can't admit that is either self-delusional or a bald-faced liar, right? They did it to show Joe himself that he needs to step down from running for re-election. But I believe he needs to step down from the presidency. They did such a good job of convincing him. I'm convinced he can't run the country, and even Kamala Harris at this point would be a better person in that position. At least we know somebody's got their hand on the tiller, right? Somebody's got their hand on the wheel. Who can they put in that has a chance of winning in this late stage? It's the deep state we're dealing with. They're the people that's got Biden propped up. It's this shadow hand in the government that's always been there. You know, our country's probably being ran by, you know, the Department of Justice, people in the FBI, military generals. I mean, everybody's just kind of doing their own thing because nobody's got the wheel. Nobody's at the tiller, right? Biden's there, the lights are on, but nobody's home. And so they're not going to choose somebody who isn't dyed-in-the-wool deep state on their side. And with that in mind, that really is just a single candidate. Nancy Pelosi's nephew, Gavin Newsom, governor of the failed state of California. That they have to put him up if the deep state's in charge. Now, if the DNC wanted to win, they bury the hatchet with RFK Jr. He's a pedigreed, lifelong Democrat, right? He comes from the royal family of the Democrat Party going clear back to the 1960s. And he's the clear choice. He should have been the Democratic National Convention choice. But he was blackballed, not allowed to run. He was barred from participating in this debate. It would have been a very different debate with RFK there. It would probably have been Biden sitting by watching the other two debate because he couldn't keep up. But they wouldn't let him attend. It's another reason that makes me think they weren't trying to have a good debate. They were trying to show us and show Biden what he's, what state he's in. They wanted to put him on display. It was elder abuse, right? It was a humiliating thing for him. I feel bad for him. He should never been put in that situation, right? But he should have stepped down. But sometimes you can't convince people that they have dementia or that they have Alzheimer's until you videotape or audio tape them, and then when they have a moment of clarity, you show it to them, and then that they make that face, that confused face, where they're coming to terms with the fact that they're not right now and they can't deny it anymore. This is what they did to him on a public stage. I think they intended to do it. I think their shock, their panic is contrived. I think it was part of a plan, part of a plot. They were giving him a chance to succeed, so they kept the lies up, kept propping him up, made excuses for him right afterwards, but when the smoke cleared, they all went, ah! But they kind of knew that was going to happen. Like, they had to know it was a coin toss at best. But he'd get through the night without coming unhinged, because they know. These people are around him all the time. They see him try to file an important document in the toilet. Right? They see him putting his jacket in the refrigerator. Right? They see him trying to sit down when other people are stand up and stand up when other people are supposed to be sitting down. Everybody else is supposed to be sitting, right? That he ain't there, right? Can you deny it anymore? Are we finally going to have some truth in politics here? And if they were smart, they'd bury the hatchet with RFK, and then we'd have a horse race. But that's never going to happen. Because Robert F. Kennedy is anti-vax, anti-big pharma, believes in the deep state, and can tell you stories firsthand of where them bodies are buried. He knows the deep state because they've been working against him, just like they've been working against Trump. He's not on their team. I still think Donald Trump and RFK ought to run together and take this deep state down together. Right? That would so be a slam dunk. Right? Trump with RFK as the VP. But RFK says he turned down the VP offer. I've heard rumors. I have not heard RFK say this himself, I don't think. But I've heard leaked rumors that Donald Trump did offer him the VP and RFK Jr. didn't want it. So, but yeah, we're about to see how this plays out. But I don't think that Joe Biden should just step down from the candidacy. I think Joe Biden should resign the presidency and make Kamala Harris our first female president. Give me your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit the description button there, or the more button, and see my links to PayPal and to Cash App, so you can continue to support this channel and keep me on the air. We'll see you next time from Sage Wonder down here in his cabin down by the creek.